Welcome back to episode 10 of Why Do I Do That? Today's question is why, word for word, why do I lose my shit when there are too many sounds at once in my house? And I chose to answer this one today, even though it sounds kind of specific. You would be surprised at how many women, especially mums, I have that come to me that say like sound overstimulation. They can't handle it when someone's talking to them while the TV's on, or if the TV's on and the child's playing a game, or their husband's on their phone whilst the TV's on and there's just too many sounds at once in their house. They can't deal with it. And there's two parts to this. It's actually quite a simple one. So first part is how you were raised. So often I find that people will be triggered by similar things that their parents were triggered by, just purely cause and effect, or also just watching. They've just watched their parents. For instance, my stepdad has this thing with kids in the couch. Like, he doesn't care about anything else, but if the kids are standing on the couch and not sitting on it, which, sometimes kids do, he'll lose his mind. And I find that then that gets wired into you, and you start, and that's not okay, this is okay. And you start to learn as you grow up what is and isn't okay. And for a lot of parents, sound and loud noises and, kids being kids and yelling and fighting and, just running an absolute muck, especially if they're trapped inside, will completely overstimulate a parent. And if you're a child of the 90s, most parents just said, get outside, go away, get outside, go and play. And so there's a lot of people who are just kind of mimicking the way that their parents reacted. Like, you have to think about, what did you get in trouble for? If you got in trouble for being too loud as a child, I can almost guarantee that when your children are being loud, it's going to trigger you, and you're going to be saying to them, just be quiet, just go outside, just go away, because it's imprinted in you. You've learned it, you've seen it, you've witnessed it. And so the way that you were raised and the way that your parents reacted is a really like an obvious sort of cause and effect. It's that watching and absorbing and learning how we have to be and who we have to be in childhood. This is how an adult acts. This is what adults like, what they don't like. And we use our parents as that base example. So think about, when you were a child, what did you get into trouble for? Or if sound and children making sounds and there being too many sounds in the house is something that's triggering, notice, is it you or is it something that you learned? Is that something that you've picked up from your parents? The second part to this is your nervous system. And I feel like the nervous system is actually really the main thing here. The childhood stuff definitely plays a role, but the number one thing is your nervous system. So what happens is the nervous system, we have our vagus nerve, which runs down the back of our neck, and it basically touches every part of our body, and it influences our stress response. It influences so much. What happens is, when you go through a period of chronic stress or a traumatic childhood, or when you go through long-term stress, your vagus nerve becomes weakened. And when your vagus nerve becomes weakened, essentially it's your brake. So when you start to get overstimulated, your vagus nerve ideally would switch on, and it would pull the brakes on, and it would pull you back down into what's called your window of tolerance. And your window of tolerance is basically your ability to handle the stresses of everyday life. When you're inside this window, shit can be happening to you and you can deal with it because you're in your window of tolerance. You can tolerate it. And so, you might be late for work and you get a little bit stressed, but you're still okay. When you go through periods of long-term stress, your vagus nerve becomes weakened, and therefore your window of tolerance becomes smaller. And when your window of tolerance becomes smaller, your ability to handle the stresses of everyday life also becomes smaller and smaller. And what happens is, you have this little window, you wake up and your alarm didn't go off and you're late for work, and boom, you're out of your window of tolerance and up the top of your window of tolerance. Once you push out the top of that window, you're in fight or flight. below this window of tolerance, you have dissociation checking out. And so what happens is when this window of tolerance is small, we are so easily triggered into fight or flight. And what happens is because that vagus nerve is weakened, we have no ability to put our brakes on and come out of fight or flight back down into our window of tolerance or into our what we would call a flow state. And so what happens is once your nervous system starts to get this dysregulated and your window of tolerance becomes this small, your ability to tolerate loud sounds, multiple sounds at one time, it starts to get impacted. It's this state of overwhelm. And so what's actually happening is it's actually got nothing to do with multiple sounds in the house at once. There'd be other people that are so chill that just wouldn't even notice multiple sounds. They just zone it out. They're in their flow. But what happens is once your nervous system is this level of dysregulated, you can't handle it. It's too much, and it's an overload of stimulation for your nervous system. So what essentially needs to happen here is we need to increase this window of tolerance, which is in turn strengthening your vagus nerve so that you can handle these everyday situations without being in fight or flight. And as I mentioned, once you're in fight or flight and you've got this really little window of tolerance, you stay in fight or flight for longer periods of time. And what I find happens with so many mums that I work with is that they've been in fight or flight. They stay in fight or flight for so long, their body can't handle it. Their inflammation levels are high, their cortisol is too high, and their body goes into shutdown mode because they can't handle this level of stress hormones for a long period of time. So their body flicks a switch and shuts down, and they go into this dissociation, and they hate it. They come to me and they say, I'm dissociated all the time. I can't focus. I can't get out of bed. I've got brain fog. I can't think. How do I get out of it? What can I do to get back to myself? And when they say get back to myself, what they actually mean is how do I get back to this version of me that's in fight or flight, that's chaotic, but has so much energy and is switched on and ready to go and boom, 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 tackling everything with ease because they have so much energy. Fight or flight is high energy, and people get addicted to fight or flight, not just because their vagus nerve is weakened and they're not able to regulate. They get addicted to it because you get shit done. So many women that are really successful in business that I work with that have got like multi-million-dollar companies that come to me for burnout, they don't want to, once they learn what's happening, they don't want to get rid of their fight or flight. They're like, you know what, actually, I'll struggle. I'll keep suffering because there's no way that I'm going to get out of this. I want the chaotic energy. I want the driven side of me. I just don't want the burnout. And sometimes you can't have both. And so what happens is they become addicted to this fight or flight. And when they eventually do hit burnout and they're dissociating all the time, I say to them, I can't fix your dissociation. Your dissociation is your body trying to rest. It's trying to help you to eliminate. It's a forced shutdown. It's like a bad place to be. It's your body is being forced to shut down and have a period of rest so that you can detox some of those stress hormones and so that you can start to heal. If you are looking for hacks to get out of dissociation, like for instance, like ice therapy and things like that, which is, it's going to bring you out of dissociation. It's going to jolt your nervous system and you're going to feel euphoric and amazing. But if you've got no vagus nerve, you're just putting yourself back into fight or flight and you're just going to enter this pattern all over again. So if we're wanting to heal this losing your shit at too many sounds in your house, this fight or flight addiction, this overwhelmed nervous system, this go, this all on the brink of burnout, we need to, when we are dissociating, we need to lean into that rest and we need to lean into, okay, this is my body telling me, switch off, it's time to check out. And you'll stop dissociating when you stop spending so much time in fight or flight. So what we really need to do here is we need to heal the nervous system. And one of the first things that I always say to my clients is, if you have a really dysregulated nervous system and you know that you've got a dysregulated nervous system, you're talking a million miles an hour, coming in, speaking fast, you're flustered and you're getting the shakes and you're getting headaches all the time and you're feeling tense and your shoulders are up here and you know that your nervous system is in a bad way and you still drink coffee, you're absolutely insane. Because coffee, for every woman that I know who has a nervous system like that, who still drinks coffee, it is making them so much worse. Caffeine, it's not bad. I'm not saying that caffeine is bad, but if you have a dysregulated nervous system and you're adding cortisol on top of that, you're just making yourself so much worse. And it's not just coffee, it's stimulants. Like, so many women are on the brink of burnout and they're drinking like all of these pre-workouts and then they're having panic attacks and they have no idea why. And the physiology behind it, like the stress hormones that you're putting into your body from high intensity workouts plus, caffeine plus these pre-workouts on top of your already dysregulated nervous system will 100% send you into a very quick burnout. So I often say to them, you need to cut the coffee, you need to cut the stimulants, you need to cut the caffeine just for a period of time while your nervous system heals. And I, again, was the example of this. I could not drink coffee without having probably an almost panic attack and anxiety and just being so worked up. Now I can have one and I definitely get a bit woo, but my nervous system's fine. I don't get headaches. I don't get any of the things that I used to get because I healed my nervous system. So it's not a forever sentence. The other thing as well is that it's a really interesting one, but true crime, people who have a really dysregulated nervous system from trauma will often also have like a bit of an addiction to true crime podcasts or true crime, like watching TV shows and things like that. And what they're actually doing, like why they're so addicted to it, is because, again, they're simulating the fight or flight response. It's keeping them in this cycle of suffering, but in this cycle of what they know is to be normal. And when they're not being triggered by their own trauma, they're kind of listening to these intense things that are triggering their nervous system back into fight or flight. And you'll know if it's you, because if I say, this is something that you need to give up or in order to heal your nervous system, and you feel like a massive reaction. I remember one of my Thrive clients, I said to her, like, we kept going in circles and she kept getting triggered and we were trying all of these different things and she just would keep triggering her nervous system. She kept going back into fight or flight. And she said something one night about, I listened to the best episode of this thing last night. It was a true crime podcast. And I said, how often do you listen to true crime? And she's like, every day. And I said, you have to stop. That's what's triggering you. And she's like, I can't. No. That's my favorite. I love it. And I said, yeah, you love it because that little kick that you're getting out of it, that little dopamine hit that you're getting from that, is because you're going into fight or flight, because it's activating your trauma and it's activating your fight or flight response. And that's why it feels good. And she's like, yeah, I do. I get a headache after it. And sometimes I feel a bit funny and blah, blah, blah. And she started to realize, and her reaction to it, like, no, I can't do that, was my first indication that she needed to. And it was that. We'd worked through all these other things. As soon as she stopped doing that, all the work that we had done was able to sort of integrate, and she wasn't going into fight or flight anymore. Her nervous system started to heal. So true crime, watching drama, listening to drama, even sometimes for people watching the news and just things that are like really negative and intense, is too much for their nervous system if they've had a long period of trauma. The other thing, as I mentioned, is ice therapies and things. There are certain things that are great for your nervous system, but only if you're in a specific state. And so like ice baths have become all the rage, and they're so good for a healthy nervous system. If you have a good window of tolerance and healthy nervous system, when you go into the ice, you're able to stay in that flow state, and it strengthens your nervous system. It strengthens your vagus nerve. But if you have a dysregulated nervous system with no window of tolerance and you jump into an ice bath, the euphoric feeling that you're feeling is you going back into fight or flight, because your nervous system can't handle that level of physiological stress. So it's again like knowing what's good for you and when. There's certain things that you can do, like coffee and things like that, later on down the track once you have a really good strong nervous system, but right now they're making it so much worse. So if you're a mum that's like, oh, I'm at home and there's too many sounds at once and it's overstimulating me, and you're like, oh, but also I have 2 coffees a day and I listen to true crime podcasts when I'm vacuuming, and so many mums are like this. It's not the sounds, it's not your kids laughing and playing plus the TV going and whatnot. It's the fact that you're constantly triggering yourself and you're living in fight or flight. So the way that you can heal your nervous system and reset your nervous system and strengthen the vagus nerve, there's so many things out there. I will post on my social media. I've got a little clip of like my favorite way to heal and strengthen the nervous system. It's a really simple eye movement technique. If you jump online, there are so many different ways that you can learn to regulate your nervous system, breathing techniques. The options are endless, but this eye movement technique is definitely one of my favorites. It can literally take you from fight or flight. It turns on your vagus nerve, brings on that break, brings you back into your window of tolerance within minutes. And even if you get triggered and you're in fight or flight again, 20 minutes later, you do it again and it brings it back. And every time you do this technique, you're actually strengthening your vagus nerve so that the next time a hit of stresses come, you actually might not move into fight or flight. So it's actually a repairing technique. So you can find that on my social media. If you know anybody who this is relevant to, who has a dysregulated nervous system, who's always in fight or flight, who can't handle all the sounds, send this episode on to them. And thank you for listening.